Now, this makes a lot of sense to me in an instance where it's a relatively small event. There was a
Right.
mistake, an error, or something innocent. But there are also failures that people experience where there's a consciousness, I did do something wrong.
You mean like hurting someone or
Yeah, I mean, I acted unethically in this situation
yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah.
was
Yeah.
interested in money instead of
Yeah.
really the other person's best interest, and it came
Yes,
back
of
to
course.
haunt me, and now I'm a failure, and I did something wrong here.
Of
What
course.
about in those situations?
Okay. So this is where Western people need a lot of training, right? Because there is something cultural that reinforces the idea that we're fundamentally bad rather than basically open, fresh, full of possibilities, basically whole, complete, that we're basically good. So when you've actually done something like that, usually what I recommend as somebody who has been practicing the confession practice twice a month for over 35 years, is that it's almost like one of the steps in AA. I think it's maybe fourth step or something, where you continually bring into the present, like say, do a fearless inventory of all the things you've done that you regret having done. But the idea there is not guilt and shame, but is to not turn your awareness away from whatever has actually happened. It has to do with being open and honest and true about mistakes that you've made, and then to feel the regret of it, and then think of that as the method for letting it go or letting it pass away. In the actual confession liturgy, you say, if acknowledged, I can lay it aside. If not acknowledged, I cannot lay it aside. It has to be acknowledged and with regret, like let it pierce you to the heart, and then you can lay it aside so that you don't have to carry it with you for the rest of your life as a package. And along with that, so is that part of the
Yes,
answer?
I think.
Then along with that is that still you say, I have done something unethical and it has harmed people, but it doesn't mean that I am basically a bad person. These qualities that caused me to do this, of greed or lust or aggression, whatever it was, jealousy, these are temporary, removable conditions that obscure me from being in touch with my basic wholeness. However, they're temporary and removable, so let's remove them. And how do you remove them? So first of all, there's a view that what's permanent is a basic wholeness. What's impermanent are these qualities. Nevertheless, they need to be acknowledged fully and laid aside. And that's how they begin to dissolve and not any longer be continually coming up, continually coming up and luring you down that road again. So the way of getting rid of, however, is not to, or let's say, the way of no longer being a slave to these qualities, if that's the right word, no longer being run around by these qualities. The Tibetans say the qualities no longer have your nose ring, because they used to put a ring in the nose of the yaks and then they could pull the yak wherever they wanted. So the way to do that is not by getting rid of in that sense of aggression, like this part of me is bad and I want to throw it out. There has to be some understanding of to be human is to have all these different qualities. And there has to be some sense of fully acknowledging these qualities, like full awareness, full light shown on these qualities, and trust that that in itself is actually what's going to cause them to not have that power over you. And in fact, that's what really works. And to me, this is another example of how basic goodness works. If you are willing to not avert your eyes or tell yourself an alternate story that pretties up the picture, or just leave that part out, or all the way, or get into addiction or of any kind, drinking yourself into oblivion or numbing in any way, or acting out through aggression. If somehow, instead of exiting with all those strategies, which are ways to try to not feel, if we learn how to feel the full extent of what it feels like to have messed up like that, done something that really harmed somebody like that, let it actually pierce you to the heart. It's your own wisdom that says, I don't want to do that to myself anymore. I don't want to go down that road. Some kind of self appreciation or self-kindness begins to come out. Some sort of basic thing that says, I'm fundamentally complete, and I don't need to keep obscuring myself in this way. And it's so sad, not only that I do this, but that everybody all over the world is doing this, when the antidote to it is to learn to fully feel what it feels like to have done those things. And then it would mean that the next time greed comes up and the storyline in your head starts saying, well, maybe I could just, cheat a little this way, or slander a person a little this way or something, it's very different, because you hear it and it makes you feel a little sick to your stomach. But it can be extremely seductive to want to seduce people again sexually, or want to cheat people again out of greed, or the various things that we might do. And so on the spot, you can feel what craving feels like. You can feel what scheming feels like. You can feel what hatred feels like. You can feel what wanting revenge feels like. And whenever you stop the process, you asked about stopping the momentum. When you stop the process and really come into the present with it and feel it, instead of what we do is we go on a sort of automatic pilot exit in our habitual form, whether it's numbing or acting out or whatever it is. So this is an alternate approach, which is feeling what you feel. And not only feeling it, but with a sense of heart, of this is part of what it is to be human. I was born, if you're a Buddhist, you might use talk like, I was born with these particular karmic propensities. When the causes and conditions come together, they just float up. And so I'm going to work with them differently in this lifetime. I'm using Buddhist language here, but when these qualities get the grip on me, I'm going to do something, outrageous. I'm going to stay present with them. And I'm going to train this way,